Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Recently, I was able to acquire a Fist of the North Star guidebook. It's all in Japanese, thank God for the almighty Google, and I can't read it myself, so I have to use Google Translate for everything. However, this guidebook had two interesting things that caught my attention immediately. The first one was that there is a list of the top 15 strongest fighters. In fact, I will read exactly what it says right now. So, this is from Google Translate. The Hans chosen by Raul, Kenshiro's strongest enemy, the king of the end of the century. It's hard to rank men. The battle always depends on the situation and environment, and he is here. I deliberately decided the rankings based on the words of Raul, who has a history of fighting against many men other than Kenshiro, and who knows a lot about so the problem is that it's being translated from Japanese, so it's not one to one with what they're trying to say. Basically, I get enough of a gist from the translation, but it's not one to one. I'm sure like an actual native speaker could understand what the fuck this is saying completely. Because I got a question mark right after about. Introduced here, Fissa, North Star, strongest character ranking, who is really strong. And then the second translation I did was Google Lens directly, not translate. Chosen by Kenshiro's strongest enemy, Raul, the king of the end of the century. It's hard to rank all the guys. It depends on the there's a word that's not being translated. Situation and environment. Here, I deliberately decided the ranking based on the words of Raul, who has fought the most men other than Kenshiro, and evaluated them. Introducing here, Fissa North Star, strongest character ranking. Who is really strong? Exclamation point. So there's that, and there's 4 matchups afterwards that I want to touch on as well, because the first guidebook had matchups, but this one also has 4 matchups. We have a repeat of Raul versus Kaio, Hio versus Falco, which is kind of interesting because I believe those two were actually absent from the last set of versus matchups. Uyghur, the General of Cassandra, versus Devil Rebirth, very exciting. And Jaggy versus Amoeba, which I believe was also missing from the last one and should have probably been there. So, we're going to go over the character rankings first. I'll list off as on the top 15. I'll go into more detail about each individual slot after the fact. And I might give some thoughts in between each individual slot. And then we'll talk about the versus matchups at the end. So, let's get started. Okay, so I want to talk about this list in greater detail in a separate video. So, I'm just going to make this very brief. There is a top 15 strongest list. The list is chosen by someone with commentary. I think he's based on Raul's words with commentary. I'm not looking at direct translations right now. I'm going off my memory here. This is going to be really short because I feel like this list needs a lot more explanation than I want to put into this video. This is from the guidebook I mentioned earlier. Number 1 is Kenshiro. Number 2 is Raul. Number 3 is Kai. Oh, technically 2 is tied with Kaio, so Raul and Kaio tied for second. 4th is Toki. 5th is Ryukin. 6th is Falco. 7th is Souther. 8th is Hio. 9th is Fudo, 10th is Juza, 11th is Ray, which you might notice that Ray's description is very weird because Ray's description references more that, let's honor him as a fighter for, what he went through. However, he's still higher on the list than the other 4. Rao's commentary, I don't think entirely influences the placement. 12th is Ryuga, 13th is Shu, 14th is Shin, and 15th is Yuta. All I'll say on this one, obviously I'm putting the versus matchups first, so strength doesn't necessarily mean victory or defeat in fights like these, and the Falco fans be eating really well, especially since now Raul is also agreeing that Falco would have killed him in a straightforward fight, so that's great for Falco fans. And yeah, I don't want to talk too much more about this list without getting into talking about it, but it's very weird the list does not have Han or Solia. Very strange list by most people's standards. I will be making a bigger video on this list. I just don't want to do it without getting scans from the manga too, because you could just write this list off and say it's wrong or whatever. Also at the beginning it does say Raul's Kenshiro's strongest opponent, but I think that's kind of lazy. So I kind of want to see if there might be any logic behind the list or any credence behind it, and I'll be making a bigger video talking about that one because I think it could be really interesting. So this is just giving you the list. The versus matchups will have a little more commentary. Thank you. Okay, so as I'm recording this, I was informed by someone I asked to check and make sure this is the most recent guidebook. So, yeah, that top 15 list is something else. That's all I'm gonna say for now. But let's get to them versus matchups because them versus matchups are kind of spicy. So we have Hio versus Falco. I will be showing the Google Translate. Maybe I'll show a picture of it before it starts to show that like this is actually in the guidebook. Basically, this is where I mentioned earlier how it basically says Falco is stronger than fucking Hio. So the Google Translate doesn't directly say this, but the Google Lens, which does have a different translation, does directly read the text off the page, does say that Falco has a point when it comes to Falco boasting about his strength. So Falco seems to be the stronger one here. However, Hio has a secret technique called Hokuto Ryuken's Ultimate Realm Makai. A leopard transform. Leopard means Hio. I don't understand where that translation issue comes from. I don't know. Maybe just Google Translate sucking ass. A leopard transformed into a demon by this would surely be able to defeat Falco. So Demon Hio for sure would beat Falco. And keep in mind this is Prime Falco. Let's assume that Falco's right leg is still intact in this battle. So Prime Falco would lose to Demon Hio, but Prime Falco is stated to be stronger than, Hio, even demon form. So I do want to keep that, I do want to point that out for the record that even according to the character ratings, if characters are stronger than each other, they can still win based off, skill and technique and such. The next matchup is Raul versus Kaio, which is actually a rematch, so to speak, of the last guidebook that had matchups from what I recall, which came out like fucking decades ago. The one that had like Salad versus Han, Kenshiro versus Toki and shit. Hio and Falco were missing from that one, so I'm glad they got a matchup between each other. But Raul versus Kaio came back again. So just to be clear, actually, now, before we do this one, we're going to skip ahead to Devil Rebirth versus Uyghur. Because Devil Rebirth versus Uyghur does show a few things that we're discussing here. So, basically, this is between Devil Rebirth and Uyghur. Basically, in battle, the one who wins in physical disparity has the advantage. On that point, Devil Reverse has a point. What's more, he's not just a power fighter. He's a Rakan Nyoken user who also has speed. On the other hand, Uyghur is so fast that he can't catch Rei and Tai and Yomiuri Jutsu. So just to translate that one a little better, but we'll come down here. So basically what it says is Devil Rebirth has both strength and speed. However, Uyghur's whips are so fast you can't see it with your eyes. It even in a different translation also says can't be seen with the naked eye. So that's a little weird because you could argue that Devil Rebirth's faster than Uyghur and that Uyghur might not scale to his own whips, which would be a little interesting. But that said, Devil Reverse is too big to be immobilized with a whip. It is speculated that the attack will be ineffective and will result in the defeat of his eagle. It keeps saying eagle. Actually, no. Right here it says, that said, in the Google Lens, I might post a Google Lens one when I mention it. That said, Devil Reverse is too big to be immobilized with a whip. It is speculated that the attack will be ineffective and that Uyghurs will be defeated, measured. So, basically, this does confirm that Devil Rebirth is stronger than Uyghur and also potentially faster than him. But whether or not you want to agree with that statement is fine. What I'm trying to point out here specifically is that in a matchup, they will mention disparities in strength. And the reason I bring this up is because Raul and Kaio are tied for the second spot in the strongest list. But as you're seeing on your description right now, strength is not directly referenced as a factor for this fight. It is specifically between the techniques of Hokuto Ryuken and Hokuto Shinken. Basically, the matchup comes down to that Hokuto Ryuken can deal with Muso Tensei and can also just fuck with Raul at the start. But Raul specializes in techniques that release fighting spirit, such as, his two major techniques. So if you bring it into a long-term battle, Raul will definitely see through Kaio's techniques and find a chance to win from there. So basically, this is going to come down to, if you think Kaio can kill Raul early enough, then Kaio wins. If you think Raul can outlast it, which it's kind of implied he could, since they say that if you bring it into a long-term battle. Now, that is an if. Maybe I might get this one. I'll probably get these translated at some point by someone who speaks more native language. But so basically, Raul wins if Kyle doesn't just immediately blitz him and take him out with his techniques early on. If it doesn't specify how long the battle has to be, it just says if you bring it into a long-term battle. But long-term battles are like in Fista and Northstar. What a long-term battle is so fucking unclear. Is a long-term battle like 3 minutes? I don't even know if there's actually considered a long-term battle at any point. I could be wrong on that one though. But yeah, so basically they kind of flip-flopped here a little bit, similar to how they did it last time, although it is a little more definitive this time around that basically early on, Raul has the disadvantage, Kyle might be able to win there. If you believe Raul can make it far enough into the fight, which I think should be possible, Raul would win. But again, this ultimately comes down to how you want to interpret it, but there's no strength gap between them. At least according to this. Kyle's version is never stated. However, it's most likely the one that fights Kenshiro by the end of the story, since we have no reason to assume it's not. However, it doesn't mention the main Northstar family art at any point. So, I guess this might be... So, the problem is that fucking Kyle's weird across the board, but whatever version you interpret it, apparently it just comes down to techniques since the skill difference, since the actual power difference isn't that substantial. At least according to the translations here. And the last one is Jaggy versus Amoeba. I don't know why that question mark exists. I don't think anyone's going to disagree that Amoeba is the more skilled of the two. But basically, Jaggy beats Amoeba because Jaggy's just smarter than him and would actually be able to set up a trap to take him out. A little interesting that they actually... Well, no, all of these basically include tactics except for Devil Rebirth and factored in things beyond just raw power. So it's kind of nice to see them actually discuss like some of the fighting style differences, especially the Raul... The best matchup here is the Raul and Kyle one because it actually talks about the differences in their schools and like why certain things would apply here versus here. So I did like that one a lot. These versus matchups were kind of cool. I really like that Amoeba and Jaggy got their own. Devil Rebirth versus Uyghur was kind of weird, but I kind of see it. And yeah, no. Hio and Falco gained their own matchups was really nice. I think that should have been done the first time around, but you know, it is what it is. And yeah, so that's more or less everything in the guidebook so far. That's pretty blatant when it comes to power scaling shenanigans and the like. There is a lot of lore from what I've seen, and there are a lot of statements that back up certain interpretations and certain descriptions of characters. I'm not mentioning that here. This is just covering the more blatant, like top 10 strongest and versus matchups because I saw those and I'm like, hey, that sounds like something fun making a video about. With that in mind, thank you guys for your time as always. Have a nice day. I'll see you guys on the next stream or video. Take care, everybody.